Hello and welcome back, friends. This episode is part 2 of my conversation with my best friend, Bethany. I hope you enjoy.
Such toxic things happen in high school.
You totally read my mind. That's actually the only other thing I have on the docket of what I wanted to talk about was like toxic relationships or friendships.
Yeah.
So we don't have to like name names or anything, but
Yeah.
like what were some of the things that you felt were toxic?
Like definitely like being judgmental about people, a lot of people, which annoys me now. I don't want to blame anyone for like giving me this trait now, but like it's definitely come from that like time of my life where we had a friend who was like super judgmental about a lot of different people. And I didn't even agree with some of the things, but I let her influence me to like think that way. And like now I'm still trying to get rid of that side of me, but that was super toxic. Like I did not like thinking of people like this, because then you get to know them, you're like, oh my god, I'm so sorry I like thought of you this way.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
I think the only reason that, and I don't know if you think differently, I feel like I tried to shield myself from that as much as possible.
I think,
and, like,
yeah.
not get sucked in.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason that was like mildly successful for me was my thought process of like, if this person like heard what I was saying, they would hate me forever. And like that thought scared me so much of somebody not liking me that I was like, I will never say anything bad about anybody ever.
Not anybody.
Like I can think it in my mind, but I will not say it out loud, because if they heard it, they would not like me, and I just want to be liked by everyone.
Yeah. No, that's so true. Like I remember I said like mean things about people and I didn't even know them. And I was just like, now I like think about it, I'm like, wow, like why did I say that? I'm embarrassed about what I said.
I mean, we're kids back then, right? Like
I know.
not everyone goes through that, but like I think that's so common, especially with like amongst girls, to do that.
Yeah.
And like at least the important thing is that like you look back and you're like, well, that was a shitty thing to do, good thing I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, that's a tough thing to go through at that age. And I think the worst part of it is not to know that you've done it before, but to think about what effect that has on other people and like how that's affected their psyche growing up. Like that's a terrible thing to think about.
For sure. Like, I mean, you know, like our friend, we have a close friend, and I feel like he or she has been affected by a lot of like hurtful things that people have said, even if it was in a joking way. Like they still take those things seriously. Like how people like if they call us shy, then we're gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm shy.
Definitely. Yeah. So. And like it's totally like thinking back to like what we might have said when we were kids, like it's all part of being not comfortable with who you are, like deep down. But like at a surface level, if you're making fun of somebody else, like you feel a little bit better about yourself.
Yeah.
And like what a terrible thing to do.
I know. It's kind of like how people are like online in the comment section. Like that's what it is now. And I'm always judging those people like, wow, like why would they do that? And I'm like, wait, before the comment section existed, like I was doing that in like real life.
And which like I think if you keep your thoughts to yourself, it's at least better.
Yeah.
Like at least you're not affecting somebody else with your negativity. You're only affecting yourself.
You're just like, yeah.
Right? But yeah, like I think one of the worst things that still perpetuates to this day is like kind of making fun of people or like looking down on people for like what you said, for like bettering themselves, but it usually manifests itself in like somebody not being that good at something yet, or like being in the beginning of their process and being like, oh, that person sucks at X, Y, and Z. But like they just started, obviously.
I know, yeah.
It, right? And I think we're all getting better. Like the internet as a whole is getting better at
Yeah.
it. Um, and I notice people like uplifting other people, like, oh, this is so cool that you're trying this,
Mm-hmm.
like, great job,
Yeah.
keep it up. I think that's so great, but that definitely was not always the case.
Yeah, for sure. It is nice that I'm seeing like a lot more people, like even when they're just starting out on things, like
Yeah,
praising people for it.
yeah,
Because sometimes I'm still getting that thought, like, what is that? And I'm like, no, wait, it's great. Like they're just starting out. So
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so in the other type, in like the romantic type of toxic relationship, how would you recognize a relationship being toxic?
Ooh, man. I feel like I've been so out of that place that I'm like,
Good.
I know, I'm like happy. Um, but I guess sometimes I can notice it in some other people.
Mm. Yeah, what
So
are some of the like red flags you think?
um, red flags I definitely see is when both sides, or even if it's just one side, is trying to change the other person.
Mm,
Not for like any like good reason, not in terms of like small habits or anything, but like them as a whole, like trying to make them into this person that they're really not, you know what I mean?
mhm,
Or like when the other person is trying to change themselves to like make the other person happy, I think
right,
is really
right.
bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know, even if that might be like a physical thing or I don't know, like small things.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that happens really frequently of like
Uh-huh.
trying to change yourself to impress somebody or like to make
Mm-hmm.
somebody happy, but it rarely sticks because
Yeah.
not
Uh-huh.
that change is impossible, but it's very difficult. And it's
Yeah.
very easy to do for a short period of time, but to like
Yeah.
really keep it up is really
Mm-hmm.
hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
For
I've
sure.
seen in a lot of relationships people trying to like change themselves or like do something and then slowly regress back to who they really
Yeah. So it goes back. Yeah. Maybe then that's not like a red flag. What do you think? I'm trying to.
are. Okay,
Yeah.
let me ask this. Like toxic relationships are pretty common, like
Mhm.
unfortunately, and like hindsight is always 2020 in terms of like what makes a relationship toxic, but why do you think it's so difficult to get out of a toxic relationship? Like it there has to be something keeping you there, right?
Mm.
Why is it so
Yeah.
difficult for people to get out?
Mm. I know for sure it's like, I mean, it's different. I know for me, it wasn't, it wasn't like abusive at all, but you know, like abusive relationships or they like let make you feel like you're all by yourself and everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's true also in like a non-abusive relationship. To in a sense that like I feel like I put myself in that situation where I think I like closed myself off from my friends
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like I just didn't have anyone else. So then I was like, if I let go of this one person, then I'm just gonna be alone. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's the point? So I need this person to be at least the one stable-ish thing
Mm-hmm.
in my life to keep me sane. At least that's how I felt. Like I think I like definitely isolated myself from my friends because I was just like, this is the best. So like
Yeah,
whatever.
I think that's true. I feel like that's the case for a lot of not even like toxic relationships, but even when a relationship gets like turned sour a little bit, maybe not to the
Mm-hmm.
point of being completely toxic, but
Yeah.
like isolating yourself in a relationship is so dangerous and then
Yeah.
has the potential like makes it even easier for it to be toxic because
Yeah.
if your everything is riding on this one person,
Uh-huh.
then like you kind of start to act crazy too, right?
Yeah.
Like anything that other person says or does like sends you into a spiral.
Mm-hmm. And that's like a lot of pressure on that other person too. Like if their job is to solely keep you happy because like they're your everything, like
Hmm.
that's so much pressure. If that pressure was on me, like I'd be angry all the time. Like I'm like, what do you want? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
So that's true. Yeah. I just remember like I'd always like call you because like there's always something that happened,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, man, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Dude,
I
I
remember.
was listening to a sermon today, and it was about like relationships, and then the pastor was just talking about like, oh, like so many of you out here are like worried if this guy's gonna break up with you. Why don't you break up with them? Like if you're not happy and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's
Yeah,
just like puts things into, yeah. I don't
totally.
know.
I read this book like earlier this year, I think, or I listened to the audiobook, and it's called Women Who Love Too Much.
Mm.
Very interesting book. I don't have like clear thoughts on whether or not I thought it was like objectively good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
But it tells a bunch of stories of these women in like pretty abusive relationships, um, and they're bad. Like there's people who were like really like physically abusive, really mentally abusive. People got married and have kids and are still with this person, like
Yeah.
married to like an addict of like any
Same.
sort of substance, right? And it talks about like the qualities in women that kind of make you a kind of target for these types of
Mm.
relationships. A lot of times it's things like, I don't know, like your childhood issues and like you're missing something in your life, so you look for that pattern in somebody else. But it it offered these like tips on essentially how to navigate that sort of toxic relationship if you find yourself in one. And it
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of like internal growth about like you're okay, like on your own, like go and find your own hobbies, don't rely on this person for
Mm-hmm.
everything. And the gist or like the whole takeaway from the book, at least what I took away, was like you just got to detach from that person and like do your own thing, and that like kind of magically straightens out the relationship, and if that person
Mm.
still sucks after, then they're
Yeah.
not worth it.
Yeah, I feel like you really had to understand who you are first. Like, and it definitely makes sense. Like when people say like you have to be happy about who you are, be happy
Mm-hmm.
and be able to love yourself first
Mm-hmm.
before loving anyone else,
Yeah.
because that's just really how.
Yeah, so true. It was
Have you ever felt like
interesting,
you were? Uh huh.
like just talking about like the female condition or like female affliction of being the person who like caters to the guy all the time, like always makes sure his
Mm-hmm.
needs are met, and like tolerates a ton of shit from this person.
Yeah.
Like obviously very very extreme examples, but I think a lot of people would relate to it in some form. Like a lot of women are like this. It's
Mm-hmm.
like part of the way that we're brought up.
Mm-hmm.
Also part of like how we have this we have this desire to like cater to this person and like be nurturing to this person, and like
Mm-hmm.
kind of be their everything, like be their, I don't know, rock
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever, especially if this person is struggling through something. Like, I want to
Mm.
be that person who's like stayed through it all and
Right.
all of
Right.
that stuff. But really, you're just hurting yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and it gets to that point of like, you cannot change somebody. Exactly what you said before. Like, you can only
Mm-hmm.
control you as much as you want to help this person. Like, they have to have agency over their own life.
Yeah. Man, like it definitely felt that way where I'm like, oh, this person's in trouble. Like I want to be there for them through the hard times. Like so they'll always remember me as that person who's there for them.
Yeah. That's like, oh, I kind of hate movies for doing that to us.
Yeah.
I think the media really ingrained that into a lot of women because we're seen as the supporting character so often.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I could say that this is true for me, that my life, at least for the majority of it, was like, how do I be the best supporting character ever? Like, not how can I be the main character, which is so dumb,
Mm.
right? And only recently have I began to like think, like, okay, stop that narrative. Like, how am I going to live my own life, not as a supporting character to somebody else, whoever that person may be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. have you ever, sorry, like I agree with you too in like the sense of like if you're like a single person, but I think like just recently, um, like I think just going to like church and stuff, it's made me think like, oh, in the Bible it does really say that like women should be the helper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which like before definitely I was like, what? Like that's insane. But but I think like now that like I'm like understanding more of like what a godly marriage looks
Mm-hmm.
like the women like especially in church that I see like the women and the wives are always helping, but I think it's what's weird is like society has made it seem like the helpers are like weaker when God never really said that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sorry, it's just a random thought.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a really good way of looking at it
Mm-hmm.
because supporting character, supporting role doesn't mean inferior role,
Yeah.
right?
Uh huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do agree in the sense of like you should be like your main character, like if you're like
Mm-hmm.
by
Mm-hmm.
yourself and like not looking to support this person. But I feel like when it in the context of like in the future, if you like get married and stuff, I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe it's just it's kind of weird that like my mindset has changed on that because before I'd be like, I'm gonna be the breadwinner, but I'm slowly like, it's okay, I'm kind of lazy right now. Like that's fine.
I That's funny because like I've almost made the opposite shift. Like I think growing up, I was chill with being like a housewife. And I mean I
Yeah,
probably still am chill with being a housewife, but
yeah.
like I don't think like my ambition did not start from when I was a kid for sure. I was not an ambitious
Mm-hmm.
child. I thought I was like gonna grow up, get married, have kids, like I don't need to do like real work for that long.
Yeah.
And I think as I got older, all of that started to frustrate me a little bit more. And now, as I said, like, why would I want to be the supporting character? I'm like trying to be the main character of my own story, etc. Like, what made you shift your mindset?
I think it's definitely just like church and like just reading the Bible more. Like if I believe in God, which I do, and He's provided us with this book that's all truth. I'm there's still some areas where I'm still like I need help, like like being like I don't agree with this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like I went to a retreat and they were talking about how women should be in the church, and um it because like before like our the introduction to it was basically saying like, oh, we're going to be answering questions on why women can't be pastors or they can't be doing these like leadership roles or like
Mm-hmm.
and at first when I got there I was like, what? Because like yeah, when I was in like college and stuff I was taught to be like, oh, I took a women's studies class and like I was like, oh yeah, all this makes sense, everyone should have equal rights, which
Mm-hmm.
yes they should, but like, oh, like women should be powerful, we shouldn't be seen as like just like the housewives or like the people who will help.
Mm-hmm.
um and then I don't know, I guess like once I after that retreat, like just hearing the fact that um the Bible never said anything about women being any less inferior, and it's just about helping like the man like lead the household. I was like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like God did make us in this way,
Yeah.
that if the Bible says that's how it should be, I feel like if it's all truth, then we should be following it. So I don't know. I don't know where my mind shifted really. Like it's
Uh-huh.
just I think like, I just finally understood it that that's how like a godly marriage would be. And I was like, you know what? That doesn't sound that bad. Like I'll be there to help. And like being a helper is there's so many important roles to it still
Sure.
that I'm like I would like be honored to do that.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I still think
But
like I don't know. I haven't come to any conclusion about it
mm,
yet. Like that, in all honesty, like that narrative still makes me feel uneasy. Like I
yeah.
understand that the supporting role is not an inferior role. And I think like the latest wave of feminism or whatever has kind of backpedaled on the like rah women should be the breadwinners, and
Right, right.
come back and it's like, hey, if you want to just be a housewife and have kids, like that's chill, that's your life, you could still be a feminist and a strong woman if you do those things.
Mm-hmm.
And like I totally recognize that, but it still makes me feel a little uneasy of like, why can't the opposite still be okay, right? Like it's cool and it's okay for us to be in the supporting role. It should be, at least in my mind, equally
Mm-hmm.
okay for us to be in a leadership role.
Mm.
You know what
I
I mean?
see. Like you mean like other than like in the household too, or like also like just in general, like in the world.
Just in general, in all realms, I guess. For me, it's just about having the options of doing whichever suits you, right? So, like,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to be the breadwinner, for example,
Yeah.
go for it. If you want to be in a supporting role, cool. And I mean, it's a whole spectrum, right? I think in the way that we live our life now is like everything is transient. Like we could be the breadwinner for like the first couple years, and then later not, like later just have kids and like be a housewife, or we could,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, do it the other way around. Or
Right.
you could have like equal incomes, or I don't know, things like that. I
Mm.
feel like there's so
No.
much
Yeah.
room for tinkering.
Mm-hmm. No, I think I understand that too. Like I don't think what's it called? Because there's like people in my church, like the pastor. I don't like some of them. Their wife is like a lawyer,
Mm.
so I like don't like. She's probably I don't know. She's probably like the breadwinner.
Uh-huh.
They're not gonna watch this. Like, um, so like I don't. Maybe it's not that. I think maybe my mindset, I don't know if it's right or not, but like my mindset on like women in like the household doesn't mean like they're not the breadwinner. I think when it means that they let the man lead is maybe like the decisions, or like if they were supposed to move somewhere, I think the wife would like follow suit, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
But they're always like, I don't know, that's hard. I don't
Yeah, no, I
yeah.
get it. It is hard. And like I've talked to my mom about this too,
Mm-hmm.
because like especially as I started to learn more about like feminism and become a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
frustrated about the way the world works.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, that's great, but when you get married, like you know that you have to, like, I don't know, not like you have to be in this supportive role, like the man is the
Right.
head of the household, blah blah
Uh-huh.
blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I still grapple with that. Like, I
Mm.
still think that all of these situations should be okay. Like, for example, in decision making, like if a job, easiest example, if a job takes
Mhm.
me overseas and like my husband's job is wherever we're living right now, like who should we
Oh.
follow, right? Like, is it
Mhm.
always going to be what his job is, or like
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like it
Mhm.
should be okay for the reverse to happen as well.
Mm. Yeah. No, I totally get that. And I have no idea like what is the right answer. I don't
I
know.
don't know
That's
either.
interesting. I would just hope that like whatever God's plan is. So I don't know. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and for me actually that's something that's been really relevant, especially when you mentioned decision making. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think those values of being like a supportive person has been so ingrained in me that like I've just defaulted to that for the majority of my life. And like I've been in my current relationship for many years, and
Mm-hmm.
like maybe a couple years ago I was like, hold on, like where, for all of these major life decisions as I've just been support rather
Mm.
than the one making the decision. And I've kind of catered to, like, I haven't been counting myself as like the lead character, to put it back to
Mm.
that
I
metaphor.
see. Uh-huh.
And it's still something that I'm like, should I continue on with this supportive role, or do I need
Mm.
to take control? you know?
Right. That's interesting. Like, because I feel like, yeah, when you talked about that stuff before, where you are catering a lot, like that is hard. Like, if I felt like I was catering all the time, I would get frustrated really easily.
Hmm.
So I don't
And
know.
like for me, it's not like anybody forced me to do it. It was
Mm-hmm.
just my natural inclination,
Right.
which was all the more frustrating for me, and why
Right.
I think it's like why it's important for me to like identify these things, and it's probably like a larger
Mm-hmm.
societal issue because I didn't
Yeah.
choose to do that necessarily, like I just did it, right? It wasn't even like a
Mm-hmm.
conscious thing, and only in retrospect I'm like, "Huh, why did I do that?" And like I only have
Mm-hmm.
myself to blame, really, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
unsatisfied. So it
Right.
made me think about like what do I really want out of my life, and like am I okay with being in a supportive role or not?
Well, to me, like how I see it, then like if you've been like doing this like out of instinct, maybe, or
Mhm.
yeah, then I feel like it's not. Maybe it might not be because society's telling you, like, oh, you got to support your husband or your
Your
significant
man.
other, your man. Maybe it's like the fact that you just trusted that what his plan was. Like you
Yeah,
trusted that this was like the right way to go.
totally.
So.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on. And like that's exactly what it is. I think at those points in my life, I trusted somebody else's plan.
Mm-hmm.
At least I trusted it more than my own, which was no plan, essentially.
No plan.
And that was part of like the whole growing up is like I didn't know what the heck
Yeah.
I was doing, so just kind of go along with
Yeah.
someone else. Uh,
Yeah.
and now that I'm like growing up a little bit more, like okay,
Mm-hmm.
what what is it in my plan? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of interesting that our like views of things like shifted because
Yeah,
like I remember when I was younger too, I was like, I remember I told you I was like, I'm not gonna have kids. Like that's just it. Like
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna be working.
exactly. Like we've had such different views on these types of
Yeah.
things.
It's
So
so
do you want
interesting.
kids or no?
I feel like if God wants me to, I'll be like, okay. I don't mind, like at this point. I'm just scared about it popping out. Like that's like my worst fear. Like, I don't want.
Yeah, me too. But we'll
But
cross that
yeah,
bridge when we get there.
yeah. But I think like I remember when I first told my mom, I was like, Mom, like there's no way I'm having kids. There was like a YouTuber I was watching and her and her husband like didn't have kids and they
Mhm.
were talking about their life and they were like there was a fan they were like asking how do you travel so much, how do you have such a nice place, they're like don't have kids, and I was like
Ooh.
interesting.
Interesting. That's how
That's how
you
you get
save
that.
money.
And then I think that's where it started, where I was just like, I'm not having kids. I just don't, I want to spend money on me and like whoever I'm with.
Hmm.
And like, I told my mom that, and I just felt so selfish all of a sudden.
Oh,
Like, I don't know why. Like, but then I was also struggling with like the whole like feminism thing where I'm like, I should be able to choose if I want kids or not. Like, it's
yeah,
my body.
yeah.
And then, but my mom was like, just one at least. I was like, Mom, you can't tell me this
That's
stuff.
so Asian.
Yeah, I don't know. I think after telling her like a few times, I just felt really selfish, like
Hmm.
not wanting to bring someone new into this world where, because I wanted to travel
I don't think
or
that's
like have
selfish.
like.
Like, yeah, I totally think it's your choice. I mean, for me, it's never even really been a choice. Like, I grew up wanting kids. Like, that was like my goal. Like my
That's
goal
my
in life.
goal.
However, I pictured my life from my earliest memories was like
Uh-huh.
grow up, get married, have kids.
Really?
It's never even been a question for me. So
Whoa.
like I don't know if I've just been brainwashed to want kids
Uh-huh.
or if I don't know how that desire entered my mind, but I've just always wanted kids.
Do you like kids too?
I love
Like, I
kids.
didn't
Like,
like
I
it.
have the same reaction to kids as, like, most people have to dogs.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah. Because I would see a dog and you'd be like,
I'm
ugh.
like,
And then
"Mm,
you'd see a baby and I'd be like,
yeah."
ugh.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
But that's another thing about, like, how I feel like my life isn't my own, because from my earliest memories, I've wanted kids. Even
Mm.
now, like, I'm already starting to save for kids. Like, my life plan, the way that I've gone about thinking about my
Mm.
life has
Yeah.
always been about kids. Like, I think about my life
Oh,
decisions in
yeah.
terms of what am I going to tell my kids when I face this situation,
Yeah.
right? Like, in a tough situation, what do I want to tell my kids that I did,
Mhm.
right?
Dude, that's
But
really interesting. I've never thought like that. I'm
yeah,
very like present, like, what am I gonna do now?
that's good. I wish I had more of that, because I think it kind of keeps me limited in a sense,
Hmm.
because I'm not living in the present. Like, I'm clearly not living for myself. I'm living for my unborn children who may not even exist. Like, that's not a way to live.
Yeah. But it's also smart. It's smart. I think I need to learn. Like, I just started saving money. Like, I was like, all my friends were like, "You just started." I'm like, why? Like, so I think it's smart that you're thinking
Yeah.
ahead. Like, my mom would be very proud of you.
It's a balance. Like,
Yeah.
I think if I had that mindset starting now, it would be
Mhm.
good. But, like, starting from 20 years ago probably wasn't the best way to
Oh.
spend 20 years.
Oh, is that where it's? You're so interesting. I would never think
Ironic
about that.
is what it is. I just think about what kind of stories I would want to tell my kids
Yeah.
afterwards.
What the moral of the stories are.
Like, the morals. I think in morals. Like,
I see, I
would
see.
would this make my kids proud? Like, would this be a
Mm,
good role model situation for them?
yeah. Uh-huh. Dude, that's cool. You're thinking ahead. You're gonna be a good mom.
That's like literally the definition of my life. And one of my greatest fears, which is entirely possible, is like,
Yeah.
what if I can't have kids? My
Yeah.
entire life
Yeah.
purpose is gone.
Your whole time. Who am I gonna tell these stories to?
Yeah, well, there will always be kids to tell stories
Yeah.
to, even if they're not my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're starting to lose daylight. The
Okay.
whole situation has changed. So I
Yeah.
feel like this is a good place to stop. We can definitely continue this another time. I feel like we have so much ground to cover. We
I
covered
know.
a lot of ground already.
I know we
If
should.
we can put this into one video, or if I'll split it up. Um, but thank you so much. This was so
Of
great.
course. Yeah. I had fun. That was cool.
It was great. Thanks so much, Beth.